Hi everybody, hope you're all doing well. Today I'll be sharing a few of my favourite beginner loadouts for Insurgency Sandstorm. I'll be covering just the first 3 classes in this video: Rifleman, Breacher and Advisor for both factions. But if you want me to cover more, let me know in the comments below. Just a quick disclaimer before we jump in though, the loadouts I show are by no means the only setups beginners can use, just simply a few I would recommend as a mix of fun, ease of use and flexibility, so you can make adjustments to fit your own liking. With that being said, let's jump in. Alright, so the first one we have is on the Security faction with the Rifleman, which is the class I think most beginners would go to straight away. And with this one, I'm going to start off with a little bit of a controversial one. Actually, both Rifleman classes for both factions are a little bit controversial, but I'll kind of explain why that is. Because with this one, I'd actually choose the QTS 11. Now, it costs you 4 points here, and it is very, very ugly, as you can see, which is why it's kind of controversial. It's super easy to use, though, which is why I'm recommending it. But it kind of, I can understand why people don't want to pick it. If they would rather use the M4 for 1 extra point, that's absolutely fair enough. Again, like I said, it's about flexibility, ease of use. You can kind of change this how you want. And for 1 extra point, you might want to use the M4 instead. However, let's use the QTS for this example. Now, as a Rifleman, you're going to be engaging from medium to longer ranges most of the time. So you're going to want something that's flexible in terms of the situations you're going to find yourself in. With this, you want a 2 to 1 times scope the majority of the time. Now, with this QTS, there's not a lot of variation when it comes to the 2 to 1 times. So we're going to go for the standard red dot on this. Again, you can choose whichever one you want for the likes of the holographic as well. And if you really want this weird thing, the 4 to 1 times, and you like using it, by all means use that as well. But we're going to be using the 2 to 1 times red dot for that specific reason there. Next up though, this already has very, very low vertical recoil compared to some of the other rifles in this genre. However, because you're a beginner, if you're watching this video, you might still want to use the recoil grip just whilst you're getting used to the game, whilst you're getting used to the recoil of this franchise, because they do exaggerate it quite a lot in this game. So you can use that. Alternatively, if you have no problem with the recoil, if you're pretty good like that, I'd probably choose the aiming grip, because getting your sights on target as quickly as possible is always going to give you the advantage in this one. Some people like the loading grip, especially if you're running and gunning, you need to reload a lot of times. That's also a good option. But for this, we're going to be using the recoil grip here. And that's pretty much it for the primary. Obviously, secondaries, they're not necessary a lot of the time, but as a beginner, you might feel comfortable just rocking one. You don't need anything special. I just have the standard Tarek. You don't need any attachments on it. With the Rifleman class, the majority of the time, you're just going to be rocking your primary. You don't find yourself too often in those situations where you need to switch to your secondary, at least if you're playing Rifleman to its strengths. When it comes to the explosives and the equipment, I think the majority of the time you're going to want either a frag grenade or incendiary. Again, you can choose smoke. You can change it to smoke if it's needed in the game mode that you're playing. Everything is adjustable whilst you're playing game mode. It really depends what game mode you're playing as well. But as a standard kind of form factor, you want the frag or an incendiary. When it comes to the equipment, this is where it kind of gets a little bit complicated, because it depends on what you want to do, but you've got to factor weight into this. Unfortunately, on this screen, you can't actually see the weight here, but the more weight you have in this percentage bar, which will come towards the top, the slower you're going to move. Any headshot is lethal, even if you've got level 3 armor here. So in that sense, if you're going to be spending quite a long time away from the action at a medium engagement, I would usually tend to use light armor, and that's the majority of the time as well. Light carrier, again, it's kind of similar. If you use 3, it's really going to weigh you down. You're not going to burn through too much ammo, hopefully. If you do, you've always got that secondary to fall back on, and you can pick up weapons from the ground, which leaves you 1 extra point. With the accessories, you can spend that on a gas mask if the enemy starts popping smokes, again, or your team are using it to push forward as well. It's going to help you. If you're unsure what smoke does, and there is a barrage as well, which is poisonous, so it protects you from poison. But if you're in smoke, just a standard smoke grenade, your character will cough, giving away your position. So if you need the gas mask, you could got that extra point to equip it when necessary. All right, sticking with the security faction, for now we're going to move over to the Breacher class. And with the primary, again, we're going to go to the bottom of the list. It's kind of a running theme here. A lot of beginners just tend to go with the cheaper ones. They flesh out the guns with attachment, which is totally understandable. It's what I did when I first started playing, and people might lean towards the likes of the MP5 and MP7 because it's what they know, and they're kind of in the middle there. However, the Honey Badger is not to be overlooked. It's super easy to use, which is why I'm recommending it. It is expensive at 5 points, but the ease of use is unbelievable. You will absolutely shred at close range with this thing. Now, that being said, the Breach class is about being stealthy, being up close and personal. If you're trying to push a point and push around, then this is the build that you're going to want. You don't need to be too flexible. I'm not sure you'd need a 2-to-1 times. Again, if you want to change it, if you feel like the flow of the game that you're in is requiring the 2-to-1 times, then by all means do that. However, we're just going to pick the MRO site as it's got a small form factor. It's not going to take up too much of your screen in those tight environments, and it's going to be easy to pinpoint your targets and take them down. When it comes to the Underbarrel, it's pretty similar to what I mentioned earlier when it comes to the recoil grip. If you are struggling with the recoil, you can pick the recoil grip. However, on this one, because it is a CQB environment, I am going to pick the aiming grip for this one, purely because the quicker you get your sights down on the target, the quicker you can pull the trigger and eliminate the threat in front of you. And when you're in these tight situations using this kind of weapon, that's exactly what you need. When it comes to the barrel attachment though, I'm actually going to surprise you with this one. We're going to go for the suppressor. Again, you don't have to run the suppressors. Sometimes they're not really necessary if it's a bit hectic and you're not trying to be stealthy, but in this instance with the honey badger, it goes so well. I'm trying to build the breacher as a stealth class. We'll move over to the advisor next, which will be a more CQB loud kind of build, but with this one we're focusing on stealth, so we're going to choose the suppressor for this one, which just leaves us 1 point here, which is just enough to get the secondary if you're comfortable with it as well. Again, if you're in CQB situation, a pistol, you don't really need too much on it. Just keep the Taric as is, plain and vanilla, and then you can move on from there. If you choose not to take the Taric with you and you don't particularly fancy having a secondary, then again, if they're using smokes, you can use that extra point on the gas mask. Keep that in mind for all the builds that we talk about today. But again, once it comes to the equipment with the light carrier and light armor, again, you can swap this out if needed. Sometimes people don't even like to use light armor, and then they can spend it on a flashbang, for example, which is a very good trade-off there, because if you're not going to get shot at, if you're being stealthy and sneaky, then flashing a room, clearing it that way is a really good idea. So again, be flexible, move with the situation. If you need a flashbang, change it. If you want that extra bit of protection, use that as well. Moving over to the advisor class now, still with the security faction, we're going to be using a more CQB kind of style class, but this time we're not focused on stealth. Focused on moving quick and just taking out as many people as we can with a high fire rate weapon like the Vector. Now, this has recently just been added, or it's the latest one to be added at time of recording, and it absolutely shreds. It really, really does. So again, we're going to focus on being close quarters. So we're just going to want a red dot. Again, you can choose between the OKP7, which I really like, or the MRO. I'm going to go with the OKP as it's available for this weapon here. When it comes to the underbarrel, again, it's up to you how comfortable you are with the recoil at this stage of you playing the game. So again, I'm going to say that you're not very comfortable. If you are comfortable, that leaves 3 extra points available for you there to spend on whatever you want moving forward. But we're going to use the recoil grip. Again, if you are comfortable with the recoil grip, I would aim for the aiming grip, as that would help you in the CQB environment. We're going to stick with the recoil grip here, and then we're going to use the extended magazines. Now, I don't recommend the extended magazines on a lot of builds. However, with this one, you can see in the bottom right corner, it's only got 25 mag capacity with 30 rounds if you have the extended mag. And because this has such a high fire rate, I definitely suggest the extended mag here. Again, once it comes to the secondary, same story. Just use the Taric because it's a good solid weapon if you need it, and hopefully you won't need it too often. There's no point in spending too many points on your secondary if you don't have to. Again, with the light armor and light carrier, same story with them. If you don't need them or you want to swap them, then just make adjustments where it is. However, this is a really balanced kind of class to use with light carrier, light armor. So that's why it's kind of my default when just recommending things to new players. Moving over to the Insurgents faction with the Rifleman class on this one. And again, a little bit controversial. We're going all the way down to the bottom to the FAMAS once again. Now, this is 6 points. A lot of people will be telling you to use the AK-74, which is absolutely understandable because it's relatively low recoil. It does a lot of damage, so it's totally understandable if you want to pick that instead for 2 extra points. However, with this one, we're going to go with the FAMAS. Super, super high fire rate and very, very lethal. It's about getting as many bullets down range as possible, and it's got good range as well. Look at that fire rate, 1,000 rounds per minute. We're going to want a sight that's going to aid us in both close quarters, medium range, and relatively far range as well. So we're going to have a 2-to-1 sight, and again, because the OKP7 is available, and I just really like that sight, I think we're going to use that one. It's pretty clean. It makes sense to me to use that one. When it comes to the underbarrel, we're going to be choosing yet again the recoil grip. Just to repeat it one last time, if you're fine with the recoil of this thing, go for the aiming grip or the loading grip, something like that. But as I'm going to presume that you're not very comfortable with it yet, use the recoil grip, as this one does kick quite a bit with that high fire rate. The one downside to the FAMAS though is that you are stuck on a 25 round mag. There's no extended mags with this, and rightly so, because quite frankly it'd be overpowered if you'd put it to 30 or even 35, because this thing absolutely shreds anyone. But moving straight over to the gear then, so we're not actually going to have a secondary. Pretty similar to the other Rifleman class, it's not worth the points at this state. So it's about having a backup frag grenade, Molotov, or smoke, depending on which one you want to pick there, and depending on how the game is going. Pretty similar to the Security Rifleman class for that one. Again, sticking with the light carrier and light armor, as it's just all rounded. Pretty good. Change it how you will. Moving over to the Insurgents Reacher class now, again focusing on stealth with this one also. Going to go all the way down to the bottom for the AS file with 6 points once again, but this one has a built-in suppressor, so we don't have to worry about that. So again, it's just about having close range sights on this with the OKP7. Once again, if you prefer the Mars, a bit bulky for me, or you like the Cobra, then by all means pick them. I'm going to be picking this one today. And with this one, it is imperative that you have an extended magazine attachment as well, because it goes from 20 all the way to 30 with this, and it is needed. So the fire rate is really high in this one as well. The recoil shouldn't give you too much hassle, so you won't need the recoil grip in my opinion. If you really feel like you want it, then by all means you can take it. But I honestly don't think you'll need it with this one here, especially since you're going to be up close and personal. Again, with the secondaries, we're going to go a bit different just for, having a bit of adding a bit of flavor to this. So we're going to go with the Browning HP, and we're also going to have the extended mag. Because that helps you a lot. It goes all the way from 13 to 20, so you can absolutely spam that if you're in a pick. Again, it's purely because you don't have too much ammo with the AS file moving forward. It's got a high fire rate. You might end up running out of ammo in those close quarter scenarios. And not all the time. It kind of is contradictory to what I was saying before, but trust me, in those pinches, you'll be happy that you got the Browning at your side there as well. Again, interchangeable if needed. But with that, you still got the light carrier, light armor, gas mask, everything you need, and you still got 2 extra points. You can be light on your feet. If you want to be lighter, get rid of the light armor, and Bob's your uncle. And then lastly, with the advisor class on the Insurgents, we're going to go all the way down once again to the P90. Now, the caveat with the advisor class is that they're so flexible. They have so many different uses. You can use a DMR class of the Ace-52, so if you want me to build one of them and tell you which one I think is best, then you can, then I will. And also the SKS is really good. But again, we're going to focus on CQB for these 2 classes for now. So we're going to go with the P90 because, again, it's one of the latest weapons that just came out. It's super, super deadly. Again, up close personal. So again, you just want a MRO sight. With this one, you can add a suppressor if need be, and then potentially a recoil grip as well. The suppressor is interchangeable if you don't feel like you're going to need it. And with that, obviously, you have an extra 3 points. So do as you please with this one, but I think it really fleshes this build out, and it gives it a bit of an advantage over the Vector build. When it comes to the secondary, which is going to use the HP Browning again, it's a good, solid secondary. You can have the Makarov if needed, and again, I'll tell you why that might be. And it's just purely based on the fact that if you end up wanting to take this away and add a flashbang, then you absolutely can do, and you can still have a secondary of a Makarov as well. So this is an alternative if you want the flexibility of on a flashbang for clearing those areas. Again, sticking the same with the light carrier, light armor. It's all good there. Right, guys, but before this video is too long, there are my recommended loadouts for the first 3 classes for each faction. Again, focus on CQB and stealth for the 2 classes towards the bottom there. They can be interchangeable, especially the advisor. But if you want me to do more, let me know in the comments down below. I certainly will. I've got lots of recommendations. And if you liked what you saw, leave a like. If you want to stick around, subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. But until next time, cheers.